Did you ever think which is the strongest Mangekyo ability we saw so far in the world of Naruto? After all, these abilities did vary greatly between each user, and well, you can never really predict what the exact ability of someone will be before that specific Mangekyo in question is awakened. Today, we'll be explaining all Mangekyo abilities in the world of Naruto and Boruto, as well as analyze their design, circumstances they were awakened, and even rank them from weakest to strongest. If you didn't already know, a Mangekyo Sharingan is distinguished from a normal Sharingan by its appearance, which changes the form of the Tomoe seal. While the exact design differs for each user, they all resemble pinwheels. It is initially awakened by the trauma suffered from the fear or grief of losing someone dear, usually related to their death. Uchiha have historically misunderstood this criteria as the user needing to be responsible for the person's death, and for that reason, they developed the practice of killing their closest loved ones in order to gain the Mangekyo Sharingan. The Mangekyo Sharingan retains all of the Sharingan's generic abilities, but enhancing them all. The Mangekyo grants powerful abilities that differ between each eye, though abilities may be similar in nature. For example, both Sasuke and Itachi had access to Amaterasu's flames, though the extent to which they can use them differs, Sasuke's control of Amaterasu being regarded as superior to Itachi's. The abilities of a Mangekyo Sharingan may not be the same for both of a single user's eyes, as Sasuke's left eye can unleash Amaterasu, while the right eye can manipulate his flames with Kagutsuchi. Likewise, each eye may not even be limited to just one ability, as at least Itachi's right eye has Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi, and Sasuke's right eye has shown to be capable of Amaterasu separately. As with any dojutsu, Mangekyo Sharingan can be transplanted into non-Uchiha, granting them all its abilities, albeit with steeper chakra demands. Unlike the standard Sharingan, a transplanted Mangekyo Sharingan can be freely activated or deactivated by non-Uchiha at will. Abilities of a Mangekyo Sharingan can also be programmed to activate under certain circumstances, either within the user's own eyes or in a target of the user's choosing. This programming remains even after death. When an Uchiha awakens the Mangekyo Sharingan, as we already mentioned, they receive some special abilities, most commonly one in each eye, in addition to the ability to summon the Susanoo, as well as improvement in base abilities like Genjutsu and perception skills during battle. But not everything is that simple, because even for true wielders, usage of the Mangekyo Sharingan's abilities can cause a great strain on the user. It drains a considerable amount of chakra when simply activating and maintaining the advanced dojutsu. Even more, it can cause considerable damage to their being, leaving the body in agonizing pain and causing deterioration to the vision until eventually overusage leaves them blind. On the bright side, their vision can be restored by transplanting the eyes of an Uchiha with strong blood ties, ideally a sibling, thus awakening the so-called eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Unlike with other transplants, this second evolution will allow the user to retain their original techniques in addition to obtaining the techniques of the new eyes. For example, Sasuke's Amaterasu resided in his left eye, but after transplanting Itachi's eyes, he could use it with his right eye as well, as Itachi's right eye was the one he used Amaterasu through. The best part of these eyes is that the users no longer suffer any negative side effects from using them. Bodily harm and chakra drain are reduced to an unnoticeably minimal level, and the eyesight is no longer harmed at all. According to Madara, the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan is proof, and Uchiha has continued to push forward despite experiencing great losses. Okay, so with all that being said, who is our first Mangekyo Sharingan user? Beginning with a Mangekyo Sharingan user that, well, we don't even know what his Mangekyo abilities were. Madara. You see, Madara Uchiha was the first Uchiha to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan, but even like that, it's not known what the individual abilities of each of his eyes were. But at least he was able to use Susanoo. The straight Tomoe of his Mangekyo Sharingan granted him fluidity in his movements when fighting. When Madara's overusage of his Mangekyo during the Warring States period left him blind, this prompted his brother Izuna to bequeath Madara his eyes on his deathbed for the sake of preserving the Uchiha, thus granting Madara the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, the first of its kind. Overall, we'll place the special abilities of Madara's Mangekyo at number 9, simply because we're not shown any special abilities to begin with, but at the very least, he did have a Susanoo. Now, before we continue, I want to make a small emphasis on what we rank. We're not ranking the users and how strong they were overall, but rather, what we do rank is how strong the special abilities of their Mangekyo was. If they do not have any special abilities, then unfortunately, they'll have to be placed on the very bottom. Then we have Izuna Uchiha that awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan shortly after Madara did. Unfortunately, once again, it's not known what the individual abilities of each of his eyes were. The only thing we do know is that before he died, Izuna entrusted his eyes to Madara in order to restore his vision and thus protect the Uchiha from extinction. Despite Izuna giving his eyes willingly, Madara is popularly believed to have taken the eyes by force. Since he displayed no special abilities with his Mangekyo, we are placing him at number 11. But what if we now speak about someone who actually did display even more overpowered abilities of his Mangekyo? Let's now analyze Itachi Uchiha. You see, Itachi Uchiha awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan after witnessing the death of his best friend, Shisui Uchiha, shortly before the Uchiha clan downfall. With either Mangekyo, he could use Tsukuyomi, an extremely powerful genjutsu that distorts the victim's perception of time. With his right Mangekyo, he could use Amaterasu, creating inextinguishable black flames at the user's focal point. Since he awakened both his Mangekyo, he could use Susanoo as well, obviously. Because both Tsukuyomi and Amaterasu used vast amounts of chakra, combined with his terminal illness, multiple uses of the Mangekyo abilities in a short period of time was particularly debilitating for Itachi, such that after using it 3 times in one day, he was required to deactivate even his normal Sharingan to conserve energy and chakra. Overall, the abilities of Itachi's Mangekyo were indeed incredibly powerful. And thus, we will be placing it at number 6. But how about we speak about his friend next, Shisui Uchiha? Shisui awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan after the guilt of, quote, allowing his friend and rival to die. With each of his eyes, he could use Kodo Amatsukami, a powerful genjutsu that manipulates a target's thoughts so perfectly and absolutely that no one, including the target themselves, would have the slightest idea that they were being controlled. However, this technique couldn't be used with the same eye again until after a period of time. In the anime, awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan in both eyes allowed him to use Susanoo, but in reality, we only saw his Susanoo in filler material. Overall, Shisui's Mangekyo abilities are placed at number 3. No, moving on, Hagoromo Otsutsuki. And hear me out before you say anything. We're aware of the fact that Hagoromo was the Sage of Six Paths, and thus one of the strongest individuals in all of Naruto. But this does not change the fact that, well, we did not see any special abilities from his Mangekyo. In the anime, Hagoromo Otsutsuki awakened his power after risking his brother Hamura's life to save him from their mother Kaguya's control. However, the design of his Mangekyo Sharingan is unknown because his eyes evolved into the Rinnegan at the same time. This unique, simultaneous evolution apparently gave Hagoromo the same ability from using his Mangekyo techniques that would normally only come from an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. While the individual techniques his eyes had are unknown, he was able to create an exceptionally massive complete body Susanoo, which was roughly the size of the Ten Tails. So because he displayed no special abilities with his Mangekyo, we are placing his Mangekyo at number 8. If we had more info about his Mangekyo, I'm sure he would have been placed way higher up in our list. But since we started with Otsutsuki, let's talk about Indra Otsutsuki next. In the manga, Indra Otsutsuki was the first user of the Mangekyo Sharingan. The individual abilities of each of his eyes were unknown, except that he was able to use Susanoo. In the anime, however, things are a bit different. He awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan after killing his 2 followers, and with his left eye, he was able to use Hinokagutsuchi to produce black flames. Truth be told, this jutsu strongly resembles Amaterasu in both form and function, but apparently, it's a different ability altogether. In Naruto Cross Boruto Ultimate Ninja Storm Connections now, well, Indra also has the ability to use Amaterasu. Overall, we'll be placing his Mangekyo abilities at number 5. Next, let's talk about the character that you've all probably been waiting to hear about. Number 1, Obito Uchiha. You see, Obito Uchiha awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan after witnessing the death of Rin during the 3rd Shinobi World War. The thing was, however, that Obito only had his right eye at the time, but the event caused his Mangekyo to simultaneously awaken in Kakashi Hatake, who wielded Obito's left eye. Obito's eyes contained Kamui, the power to teleport oneself and others to Kamui's dimension. Kamui had 2 aspects, one contained within each eye. Obito's right eye used Kamui to seamlessly transport parts or all of his body, and those in contact with him into the dimension, giving the appearance of being able to pass through solid objects. Any part of Obito that moved into the dimension was concurrently vulnerable to attack from there. Kakashi's left eye was able to use Kamui at long range by producing a small portal with an attractive force that pulled things into the other dimension, whole or in part. The left eye could also target the user themselves for complete teleporting. Overall, this set of eyes would probably be the most overpowered one we've seen so far in the world of Naruto, if Obito had both eyes in his possession, as both eyes would mean access to the Susanoo on top of possessing the Kamui. And well, let's just say that as we analyzed in our past video, where we ranked the strongest Susanoo in Naruto, Kakashi's Susanoo was one of the strongest in history, exactly because of the Kamui Shuriken ability. If Obito had access to both Mangekyo, that's exactly the Susanoo he would manifest, and that's exactly the same ability he could get too. Overall, this ability is, in our opinion, the strongest and most broken ability we've ever seen from any Mangekyo so far. Moving on to Sasuke Uchiha. You see, Sasuke Uchiha awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan after witnessing his older brother Itachi die in battle with him and learning the truth behind his actions. With either eye, Sasuke can cast Amaterasu as well as shape and extinguish them. Because he awakened both of his Mangekyo, he can use Susanoo as well. Even though Sasuke is initially reluctant to transplant Itachi's eyes and gain the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, claiming that his views were different from Itachi's, he later decides he needs the increase of strength in order to kill Naruto. That and the fact that the severe deterioration of his eyesight from overuse made Sasuke accept Itachi's eyes transplant, thus awakening the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Overall, we rank Sasuke's Mangekyo abilities at number 4. Next, let's talk about the character you've been waiting for, Sarada Uchiha. Sarada Uchiha awakened her Mangekyo Sharingan when Boruto was framed for killing the 7th Hokage due to Kawaki's wish, crying in fear for Boruto's safety. Sarada's eyes wield a powerful technique called Ohirume, where she's to create numerous orbs that act as a focus point for her to control the gravitational force for a variety of effects. In addition to specifically selecting what targets she will and will not affect with the orbs, the application with the orbs grants her a variety of effects. When using it on herself, it allows her to simulate flight, to move about freely in the air. When used on other targets, she can redirect or even draw targets toward the orbs of her choosing. Offensively, once a target is pulled into contact with the orb of her choosing, the gravitational pull is amplified to implosion, instantly obliterating the target. In simpler words, she can basically create mini black holes at will. Overall, we rank this Mangekyo ability at number 2. On to Shin Uchiha next. You see, Shin Uchiha was created by Orochimaru, who discovered him as a former test subject with an extraordinary biological condition. His body had no immune response to genetic implants, making him the perfect vessel for experimentation. Orochimaru used Shin in various experiments involving the Sharingan and genetic cloning, capitalizing on Shin's ability to accept transplanted tissues without rejection. Over time, Shin became independent, escaped Orochimaru's lab, and began to see himself as a true Uchiha, despite having no blood ties to the clan. Shin admired Itachi Uchiha deeply and developed a twisted philosophy based on natural selection and conflict, believing that peace made people weak. He sought to revive the Akatsuki as a means of promoting eternal conflict. To achieve this, he cloned multiple versions of himself, treating them as his sons, and began targeting key figures like Sasuke Uchiha and Sarada in an effort to eliminate obstacles to his ideology. In terms of abilities, Shin Uchiha was incredibly powerful and dangerous, as he possessed multiple Sharingan implanted across his body, including on his arms and head. He could manipulate weapons telekinetically through a unique ability tied to his Mangekyo Sharingan, which allowed him to control any object marked with his chakra. This Mangekyo Sharingan form was uniquely shared between multiple, but yet connected individuals. With his right eye, Shin Uchiha was able to telekinetically manipulate any objects after first branding them with a special mark that he placed by direct contact with his hand. Shin's clones, being genetically identical to him, possess the same Mangekyo Sharingan design, and with it, the same telekinetic powers. Despite having multiple Mangekyo Sharingan, neither Shin nor his clones displayed the ability to use Susanoo. He was also highly skilled in close combat and had advanced regenerative capabilities, thanks to the Hashirama cells integrated into his body. His clones, while not as powerful as him individually, could fight in coordinated attacks, making them deadly as a group. Overall, his Mangekyo abilities will be placed only at number 10, since, yeah, he did have a special Mangekyo ability, but at the same time, it was neither the strongest nor was it complete. After all, he did not have access to the Susanoo despite having not just one, but rather multiple awakened Mangekyo. Up next, let's see a game original character. Number 7, Nanashi Uchiha. And well, for those who don't know, in Naruto X Boruto Ultimate Ninja Storm Connection story, Nanashi Uchiha awakened her Mangekyo Sharingan at some point during the Warring States period. Much like Itachi, Nanashi was able to use both Tsukuyomi and Amaterasu, and like Sasuke, can control the shape of the black flames produced by the latter. In addition, she could also use two powerful Genjutsu Genjutsu, the engraved Tsukuyomi, a technique similar to the infinite Tsukuyomi, in which she reflected the light of her Mangekyo Sharingan off of the moon to brand all those caught within it with a mark resembling her Mangekyo Sharingan, and the Yachihoko, which allowed her to control the minds and chakra of everyone branded by the marking of the engraved Tsukuyomi, all the while erasing their memories. Overall, we rank her abilities at number 7, but the first of which we will speak about, Fugaku Uchiha. In the anime, Fugaku Uchiha had awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan after witnessing a sacrifice of his dear friend during the Third Shinobi World War. Although not much is known about his Mangekyo, Fugaku was confident he was strong enough to control the Nine Tails. And yeah, that's about it as far as what we know about his Mangekyo. He is ranked at number 12. And now we should mention the final known users that, okay, we're not going to speak a lot about since not many things are known, but most importantly, they're also mostly filler anyway. You see, we have Baru Uchiha that featured this Mangekyo design. We also know that he was able to use the Uchiha clan's Izanagi technique. And next, we have Naka Uchiha, which featured this Mangekyo design. And similarly to Baru, he could also use the Izanagi. Next is Rai Uchiha that featured this Mangekyo pattern and could also use Izanagi. And for the final character of our video, Naori Uchiha, featuring this Mangekyo design, and as it was with the rest of the characters we mentioned, she could also use the Izanagi. Click on this video next, where I'm explaining as well as ranking all Susanoo we ever saw in the world of Naruto. Go on, check it out!